Who looks up at the infinite night sky and says, "Nope, it's all right here, under my feet. That's it." I can't imagine thinking that way. How do we how do we go on with the idea that we're the only life on any of the planets? I mean, there's 10 to the 24th number of stars out there, right? And there's trillions of galaxies, and each of those are billions of stars or trillions of stars. So yeah, that's a whole lot of potential. And in the tiny little sliver of the night sky we have looked at, we've spotted roughly 8,000 exoplanets that are within the star's Goldilocks zone, and that's really, really promising when you consider that, as Neil deGrasse Tyson pointed out many times, that all life on this planet is made from three of the four most abundant things in the entire universe: hydrogen, oxygen, and carbon. Carbon being the most chemically fertile of all the elements. And then, right below it is silicon, and that's really, really high up there too. There's a lot of that. So for the conditions to exist right here like they do on Earth elsewhere in the universe isn't an infinitesimal probability. It's actually, well, it's probable, right? It's highly probable that there's other planets out there approximately our size from the right distance of the star that are made up of the same three basic things, four basic things. There's a lot of other things too, and there's probably just as many of them out there that have that balance just wrong, and there won't be life. And that seems to be likely also. However, I think it really needs to be considered how much we keep expanding and exploring our Earth, right? And discovering how much more of the planet life actually inhabits, from geothermal vents under the ocean with organisms that don't live off of sunlight, but they actually live off of thermal energy, and uh, other places where there's bacteria. I know bacteria. It's not really life. It's totally life. Live in acidic, caustic, toxic pools, and they eat, all sorts of crazy things. Like in Chernobyl, in fucking Chernobyl, there is moss that's feeding off the radiation there. That's crazy. Like, life really does find a way in the craziest ways. So there's things out there that we wouldn't even recognize as life that um, would technically be life even once we had the ability to understand it. Once we had a further grasp of exactly how much and how many different ways that life can exist, to find out, you know. So you might know this by now because you clicked on it. This is the Unstoppable Podcast, and I am Bill Unstoppa. And off into space we go today. Um, these other planets out there and these other forms of life, which I don't know that they are, right? I just think that it is an incredibly high potential for them to exist out there. I can't see any sort of factors that exist that would prevent it from popping up in other places in the universe. You could even go full on religion with it, right? And unless you want to go full flat Earth, because oh man, like I can't do the flat Earth thing. Like you gotta really do some mental gymnastics to buy that off. I mean, your cell phone work, right? Your cell phone works fine. You believe that science, but you don't believe that the Earth is round, and that all the satellites out there are just lamps in the sky. I don't know, like the glass dome over the Earth. I don't know what the fuck is it. Well, okay, let's just look at it this way, right? Why would we build cell phone towers and radio towers so damn high if it wasn't to overcome the arc of the Earth's surface? Right? A cell phone tower that is, as long as it was taller than the nearest object, it would have an unrestricted range because it's light, right? It's electromagnetic energy. It travels at the speed of fucking light, and the only thing that stops it is matter, right? Matter gets in the way and it obscures it. So that's ridiculous. Unless the matter obstructing it was literally the surface of the Earth itself, which means that the Earth would have to be round. I know. But okay, so here's another little thought on that, right? So the distance from the Earth to the Sun, according to the flat earthers, is like 3,000 miles. But yet, you can't see the sun at night. Well, why can't you see it at night? Where it goes down below the horizon, it just kind of vanishes past the 3,000 mile mark. So then tell me this, right? It gets dark on the west coast 3 hours before it does on the east coast. That's right at the 3,000 mile mark. That's not the 3,500 mile mark, but it's dark in the Midwest before it's dark on the west coast, which means that people in the Midwest should be able to see the sun that late at night because it's only 1,400, 1,500 miles. That doesn't add up. Like, it's basic fucking math. You should be able to see it at night because the distance between those areas isn't far enough across. You know, like the complete lack of rationality there is just ridiculous. So blasting off from the flat Earth surface back into the cosmos, uh, there's always the idea of, well, okay, if there's so much life out there, so much potential for life out there, why haven't we found it? Well, we haven't looked at that much of the night sky, or the daytime sky, right? It's hard to look at the stars with the sun blinding you. But all jokes aside, we haven't looked at very much of the sky. It's huge, right? We've got 360 by 360 angles of which we need to inspect to look at the whole universe and see what's out there. But that still that's huge. Like, that shouldn't even be necessary, right? If there's as many planets that we've found already in the night sky, some of these should be older than our Earth and, had ample time for more advanced civilizations to have popped up and maybe even came and visited. And as you know, with the declassification of those videos from the Navy, well, was it the Air Force? Yeah, there's definitely UFOs out there. Now, I don't say that those are necessarily aliens, but they're definitely unfucking identified, and they're objects, and they're flying. So, UFOs confirmed. Get over it. That said, maybe those aren't aliens. Maybe those are, super hyper advanced aircraft. I doubt it, but I mean, human-made aircraft of earthly origin. But I think more the reason why we don't see traffic jams of alien commuters in our sky is because in order to pass by us and to be interstellar species, they have to travel faster than the speed of light, which means you're not going to be able to track it with the naked eye. Probably can't track it with a camera. You can't follow a bullet with your naked eye. You think you can track an object zooming across the sky at beyond light speed? You can't even do the math to represent beyond light speed. And maybe it's not even traveling faster than light speed in a way that we comprehend, but maybe it's using quantum physics to manipulate the fabric of space itself and jumping from place to place. And you can't grasp that, and we can't pick up their signals, right? Because that's the other one is, well, how come it's so quiet out there? How come there's not radio signals blaring to us from other places in the universe? Well, maybe they're moved beyond this primitive electromagnetic form of communication because they've learned how to be interstellar species, and by the time the message got to who they send it to, they could have already been there and delivered the message in alien them damn selves. And then waited a couple thousand years for their slow-ass telephone call to come and ring. They could call themselves on the space phone, right? Or on their cell phone, zoom to the nearest planet, the nearest star, and sit down, make a cup of coffee, take a deuce, and answer the phone call that they sent themselves. That right there, that's what you call a class 1 civilization. When you can call yourself from the past, zip to the future, and get that phone call while you're dropping a toozy on the toilet. So, yeah, I can't fathom the idea that we're the only thing out there. It's so improbable. Maybe there aren't other more advanced civilizations. Maybe we're the oldest. We might be the oldest from our perspective. We're in the center of the universe, and that seems unlikely because, well, the universe has been around so long. How likely is it that we're in the dead center of it? Well, just as likely as it is that we are in the center of the solar system, which we are not. We orbit the sun. The Earth doesn't orbit. The sun doesn't orbit the Earth as once thought. What it means is that what we see is the edge of light that has reached our planet from the edges of the universe, right? That's how much has reached us. So if we were to be able to teleport forward in time, right? Break that speed of light, zoom to the horizon, well, maybe there's another 13 billion years of light that have reached that point. We don't know that. We can't know that until we get there or build better telescopes or wait another 13.8 billion years. So that's how that's going to have to play out. In other news, though, garter snakes have friends. Yeah, you heard me right. Snakes, but garter snakes, like the little striped ribbon-looking things. Not the same thing as a ribbon snake. It's a garter snake. But they have friends. They make buddies. You see them pile up in these big dens for winter, and then spring they come popping out of holes in big masses. So this researcher took the garter snakes and threw them. He marked them. He took the little clumps of garter snakes out of his breeding facility. I think it was a breeding facility. I don't believe that they were wild caught snakes, and put a colored dot on all the groups that were gathered up inside of his enclosure, and then he moved them to a brand new enclosure and scrubbed it of all scent of smell, right? So he scrubs it before he put them in there, right? It's very hard to scrub snakes. They do not appreciate it at all. Believe me, I have tried. I got a lot of snakes. So they scrub this enclosure out, put all new, substrate in, so they have no scent of familiarity, and all the snakes with the matching dots went and gathered up. So all the snakes with red dots gather with snakes with other red dots, and all the snakes with white, and all the snakes with blue, and so on and so forth. And I think what we learn from this is that snakes are racist, and they play favorites to dots. Or maybe they've the sense of smell of each other of their buddies. But, hey, it's a hot topic. Racist garter snakes, they're very judgmental. Watch out for them. If you're not a garter snake, you are not their friend. And if you're not one of their clique garter snakes, man, you're on the outside, and you're not cool enough into the club, dude. Not garter snake cool. You're not red dot garter snake cool. So get the fuck out of here with your COVID ass. So COVID ass, COVID masks. Man, everybody is so conflicted about the mask thing. Government's now going to tell me what to do with my face. I ain't wearing no goddamn burqa. No, some of y'all should be wearing burqas because you ugly. You just fucking ugly, man. Cover that mug up. Don't smile at me like that. You and your meth mouth. No. So why wear a mask? Well, I think that it's probably a good idea to wear it. And the reason why is because I do believe that with freedoms comes responsibilities, right? You have to be able to balance between the two. You have the freedom to be whatever kind of jackass idiot you want, but you need to have the responsibility to know when to exercise that right. That's the whole trick, okay? And so I understand the concern that the government is really making some really bold ass moves. I say the government as in, the whole federal thing. They're always going to do that. We can get into that a whole another time. But specifically, the smaller municipalities and some of the bigger ones like, oh God, what is the Houston judge's name? I can't remember her name right now. But anyhow, making big power grabs and by fiat declaring that you will go to jail under emergency powers if you don't wear a mask in public. Well, so yeah, that's kind of poking the hornet nest there and asking for Asian hornets to come sting you in the butt. And that's kind of the thing. But the reason why you should wear a mask, I believe, is that because you have particulate spray when you speak and breathe and laugh and cough and sneeze. And these all scatter around all over around you and surfaces, and they become standing sources of secondary contamination that some other bystander could accidentally walk by, touch, and then in their um, lapse of discipline, touch their face, scratch their face. Like, right, we're sweaty, you're itchy, and or maybe just the allergies are bugging you and your nose itches and you reach up and you scratch your nose and son of a bitch, you are infected with the vid. You got it now. You're gonna get the defib from the vib or something like that. So I think that's probably a pretty good reason why that people should do this. On the flip side of that coin, though, I also understand that there's also a slightly increased chance that people will touch their face more adjusting these masks because they're hot and uncomfortable. But for anybody who wants to doubt the validity of wearing a mask as a potential limiter to the distance of which germs are spread, do you think it's rude when people don't cover their nose when they sneeze or cough in your face with their hands? Right? Everybody knows that you should cover your mouth when you cough or sneeze. Why? Well, because you spread fucking germs. Duh. Every kindergartner knows this, or should know it. If your kindergartners don't know this, teach them that right now. Just pull them aside and say, hey, cover your nasty little petri dish of a face up when you fart out of it. Okay, I'm glad we had this talk, class. On the other side of that, right? So you got all the heat, and especially here in Houston, we got all the humidity. Today's been beautiful. Got all this May weather, this crazy, crazy weather that we're having. It's hot and it's cold. It's yes and it's no. There's a larger potential that you're gonna adjust that mask, or it's gonna fog up your glasses and you can't see. I mean, like those are real problems. So by day I run a big production facility, and the people in there, we try to get them to wear masks as much as possible. And there's times when they're working and they got to make a choice between covering their face and being able to see what they're doing. And at that point, your visual acuity takes priority, because the risk of immediate severe injury is heightened a lot, like exponentially. Like it would be ridiculous to choose the mask over your vision. And of course, some of the guys, they ruin their safety glasses, and I got to get them for that. But there's times to choose this, how to do it, right? I think there was an article about a restaurant owner who was telling his employees that they're not allowed to cover their face with a mask. I mean, why would you not want to practice improved server hygiene in a time of increased risk for exposure to potentially lethal pathogens? No, to me that's a bit crazy. It's irresponsible. It's taking your rights and putting them above your responsibility. And rights should always trump everything, but at the same time, like, be responsible. Like, prove to the world that, these rights exist because, one, we're smart enough to know how to wield them appropriately. And that's something that we need to do, I think. Again, I understand, like, the point of civil disobedience. Nothing, no freedom's ever been regained without civil disobedience. However, I don't think that this mask thing is going to be some sort of temporary deal, because I'm not going that far down the conspiracy rabbit hole thinking that they're going to get us, completely acclimated to wearing masks 24/7, 365, and use that as an excuse to implement some sort of microchip implanted identifier device. That they can use RFID chips to track our every move. That shit's already in your phone, dude. It's already in your phone. So if you're worried about that, ditch your smartphone, get your flip phone, swap it out every couple weeks for a burner, and cover your ass that way. Of course, that's probably a really good way to end up on a terrorist watch list too, doing that. Which that's a problem all on its own too, is the fact that to get put on these super secret lists and these no-fly lists is you don't even know how you do it. I mean, there's a whole plethora of keywords that'll flag a search or that they can use to flag a search, which I think I talked about this in one of the other episodes. Um, my idea that the NSA engines or whatever sort of search base government database and server slash search engine will be taking all of this data from all the population of the planet, particularly the citizens and non-citizens, but in this case, let's say a file for just citizens, and then compare it to all the currently existing laws, yada yada yada, and create the dossier on each and every person who's ever broke a law. And speaking of ever broke a law, like you think, oh hell, I got nothing to worry about. I don't break laws. I'm a law-abiding citizen. Like, you don't know that. You don't fucking know that, because if you go to court right now for something, for a traffic ticket or let's say some misdemeanor like not wearing a mask, you're gonna get a lawyer. Why are you gonna get a lawyer? Because you don't know the fucking law. The cop that arrested you doesn't know all the laws. And the prosecutor that's going to prosecute you probably knows enough of the law, but hopefully he doesn't know all the laws, so that way your attorney hopefully knows more of the laws than your prosecutor knows, so you can get off the fucking charges. So that brings me to a point. There is a book. It is called Three Felonies a Day, and it was written by a former prosecutor for the FBI, or a federal prosecutor. I don't want to say the FBI because I don't think they actually prosecute people. Okay, I cheated. I had to pause it and look up the author's name. I actually have this book in my collection, but it is oh god, L. Gordon Corvitz. You commit 3 felonies a day. Laws have become too vague, and the concept of intent has disappeared. And that's basically the summary of it. And he goes through, it is a dry read. He goes through case after case and example and legal comparison. So, if you're somebody somewhat versed in law or an actual lawyer, you probably already read it. But this guy covers a lot, and it's horrifying the depths of which the the burden of proof and intent of illegal intent is just completely forgotten about or ignored. Really, it's ignored, and people are maliciously prosecuted just for the sake of adding some stars to their resume. They want to put some notches in their belt, so that way when they are tired of being a prosecutor, they can run for judge on how fucking tough they were on crime and how much stuff they put away. Because, they run on that. They don't care about the circumstances that allowed them to convict you outside of how they can use it again to get another conviction that's going to make them look so much better. Okay, so, sorry, forgot to turn the cell phone down while this was going on. So, there it is, cat's out of the bag. I got a life outside of this table, outside of this podcast. I don't just exist solely on the internet. Which brings me to my conspiracy theory about the internet. That when you look at these Instagram chicks and you look at all or any chick at all, there are no women on the internet. They're all creepy old comic book store fat guys with receding hairlines and ponytails pretending to be actual women. And I can say this because I've never actually met a woman. Probably. I mean, not online anyway. I have to actually leave the house to meet a woman, There's the 2 that live with me, my wife and daughter, but they don't count. Those are actual people, and I don't believe that they even have online accounts because that would be foolish and against my conspiracy theory. And just know that I'm on to you, comic book store guys all over the world. You're creepy, and you're not fooling anyone with your Instagram chick accounts. You Photoshop those photos, because that ain't real. One of the things that popped into my head, it didn't just pop into my head, right? There was a whole series of circumstances and events that led me to this ponderance, and a lot of people are thinking about it right now. It was the whole payroll protection loan thing that's going on, And one of the really big companies that I work with, um, all these companies are applying for loans, right? Because if you get shot down for the loan, it's no big deal. But then there is this rule that says you have to have, it's for small businesses, and small businesses defined by less than 500 employees at a facility. Like 500 employees at a facility is not a small business. Like that's a big fucking thriving business. And that's a lot of damn people. And so one of the companies I work with cut half their workforce so they could qualify. And I was like, man. And then there's these terms to it that doesn't have to be pay. It can be what is it? You can delay the payback on it. I don't remember what the financial terminology is for this. I am not a finance guy, so if I sound completely retarded, the reason is because I am. Like I know I'm not supposed to say retarded, but yeah, I am 100% just behind the curve on the financial inner workings of big banks and um, you know especially stock markets and tradings and stuff like that. Like I got to spend some time learning about that. I spend the rest of my time reading about science and legal aspects, which I don't know how you navigate your way through this world not knowing that much about finance. And this is probably why I feel like I get raped by the bank every time I deal with them or any sort of lender. So I just don't take out loans for shit unless I absolutely have to. Like I don't have any credit cards. Like I've had some in the past, pay them off, and then like I just don't touch them again. It's like okay, if I can't afford it, I just don't buy it. And that's just how I try to operate all the time. I could probably do better if I did. If I wanted to spend more time thinking about what's coming in, what's going out, and I know everybody prioritizes their life differently. I know some people that just they don't give a hot shit and they're just going to do what they do all the time, and then other people who spend their every waking moment just or at least every action they make, they consider the financial implications, consequences, and potentials for it. And those people are what I like to call smarter than me. Um, I wish I was one of those guys. The guy I work for, you know, is very well off, very practical, but he's also the kind of guy, who has the money to buy and sit on a couple $100,000 engines and wait for, a customer to need them, but will also compare the price of mustard at a grocery store and make sure that he's not buying the too expensive one. And has been known to clip coupons. So there's a lot of different types of people out there. And it kind of got me thinking about, you know, life and how you spend it. And you are spending life. We like to think we spend money and we spend time. Well, time is life, right? So you can spend money or you can spend time. Or you can spend time on your money. And most of the time, that's going to pay off for you. But then there's these people that do all this, and like, man, I saw a lot of this. Guys that plan to retire, but they didn't take real good care of themselves, and they died, and left their kids some cash, and that was great, for the kids, but they were all grown, older kids who had plenty for themselves, and didn't really need any help, and so I like to hope that at least those kids took that inheritance and gave a good proper burial for these guys, but went on vacation and spent some time with their fucking kids and family. That they didn't just reinvest it in business and tools or into just turn it into more money, because you can't take it with you when you die. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like I want to be very wealthy. Like that would be great. Like who doesn't want to be pretty wealthy? I do, but I also don't want to be like this Jeff Bezos type mentality where you are just so incredibly relentlessly focused and obsessive about finding ways to just gather up every bit of cash on the planet. I don't know, like what could I do with you know $100 billion that I can't do with $99 billion. I can't think of nothing. I'm not that creative though. Maybe that's why I don't have $100 billion, because I can't figure out what the fuck I would do with $99 billion. I mean, $1 billion and I would be pretty damn happy. Shit, give me a cold beer and a Big Mac right now. I'm pretty happy. Simple man, simple times. Uh, yeah, I don't know. Like there's a whole bunch to the what you prioritize in life that makes me just kind of wonder if that dude who lives super simple and just he's watches his sports on the weekend, does his 9 to 5, and the rest of the time just chills the fuck out and kind of enjoys life with the family or whatever it is that he enjoys. Maybe he's sitting in a boat fishing on a bank, and that's it. Like that's the good life. Maybe that is a good life. And I know uh, Joe Rogan had a guy who did that book on the Comanches on, and I listened to that, and I need to read that book. But they were talking about how awesome the Comanche lifestyle was if you weren't a Comanche, because if you weren't a Comanche, the Comanches were gonna Comanche the shit out of you, and that's not good for you if you're not a Comanche. And if you don't know what that means, like you should learn something about the Comanches because they were not nice. Uh, but at one point in time, they're like there's this little window between when they are boys and they are men, like an adolescent stage, and manly, manhood came very early for primitive cultures like that. But these kids had almost no rules stopping them. They just ran around and rode horses and hunt and played all day and fished. I don't know if they fished. Honestly, I don't know that much. But right, you get the idea. They were just completely burdenless creatures outside of their carnal needs, outside of their physical needs for sustenance and shelter. Like that was it. They were not slaves to anything. Now, of course, they lived short lives and died horrible deaths many of the times, but the time that they were alive, you can bet they were really, really fucking alive. They never sat there in a cubicle wondering where the fuck they went wrong. They never sat there, laying down at night and just dreading the next day, getting up and doing the whole damn thing over again. They just went out, they had a blast and loved it every second until they got dysentery and died. Game over, guys. Game over. Have a good one. Catch you next time.